Good evening, dear viewers of scientific meetings. I want to send to Miroslaw Sikora, Poland scientist, my colleague historian of science, who wished to deliver his lecture and support Ukrainian people, the people of Ukraine, in this difficult time. Today's topic: industrial espionage and communist Poland. I'm introducing our lecturer, Miroslaw Sikora, PhD, Poland. Since 2005, he works in the Institute of National Remembrance, regional branch in Katowice, Silesia. His studies relate to the economic history of World War II and Cold War. Several technical moments. You can make donations, assistance for logical and medical support in Ukraine. I'll put it into the chat of Zoom. And after that, you can make a donation to our Patreon profile. The order of event is standard. The first part is report 30-40 minutes. And after that, we will answer questions. Please turn microphones off so we can better hear our speaker. And also you can write questions for the second part into chat, or at least write that you want to ask the question personally. Miroslav, you can start.
Thank you. I will be trying to discuss the pretty sophisticated issues of intelligence gathering in the area of science and technology. Please just write me on the chat in case I will be boring for you, and perhaps I will then we will create some dynamic in this meeting, and I will be able to switch to another topic or try to discuss another questions that could be much more interesting or relevant to you. Anyway, I would like to start about the basic question, which is what is this actually, this industrial espionage, and can we actually replace this term with another? Yes, indeed, we can, and there is a variety of concepts, a variety of definitions, a variety of words we can use here, and of course they do not mean exactly the same. They differ a bit. I'm talking about the economic espionage or intelligence gathering or technical scientific espionage, and it also depends on in which country or from the position of which language are you analyzing the problem. Because in the United States, scientific intelligence will have a slightly different meaning as it has in Poland or in Russia. I will then discuss it in more detail. Let me try. Okay, switch the presentation. So this is a mixture of various concepts we are going to discuss here, but I would like to start with a basic statement that actually that this is in a human nature. It lays in human nature that we are trying to emulate the more advanced societies, and there was this pretty famous writer and scientist, Jared Diamond, who wrote the book about the germs, guns, and steel in the 90s. The book told the story about the primitive societies in the Pacific Ocean and or in Australia, and how they were destroyed, but not catching up with the technology and staying back in the age of stone and not developing not entering the Iron Age in the before our era. So the stealing of I would like to say and stress that watching the others and comparing with the others and trying to emulate them, trying to be as good as they are, is is genetically embedded in human societies, to my understanding. So the industrial espionage in the 20th century, when it was flourishing, is actually nothing new. And if you take some basic works on industrial espionage, there are plenty of them already worldwide. Then the writers, the historians, are referring usually to the Bible or to other holy books or to ancient scriptures, and they are finding their traces of espionage or just copying solutions from another, by one society from another one. So it is something quite normal for a human being, but it was accelerated in the 20th century thanks to the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union became a mastermind of organized theft of intellectual property, actually. So a lot of solutions introduced into Soviet economy already in the interwar times, in the 20s, 30s, and then in the 40s, they are originating from the Western solutions. When it comes to mobiles, automotive industry, planes, actually, so far any possible industrial branch is concerned, they trying and were successful to steal, using human intelligence, most of all at that time, to get access to documents, to patterns, to blueprints in the Western companies, and to bring them to Soviet Union, or to bring entire devices and to dismantle them and try to revert engineer this equipment or technology. So it was about the items, about know-how, knowledge, consulting, any possible form in which the knowledge could be transferred from one country to another country. And then actually Poland, after the Second World War, as Poland, because this is our case study, Poland, I will explain why Poland or another Middle East European countries are a good opportunity to study those problems. Poland then was, of course, in the Soviet sphere of influence, and a Polish security service sent their employees to Soviet Union in order to learn a bit about how to efficiently use intelligence asset in order to improve economy. So it was learning from the best, you can say, actually. And the Poles were not the only ones. Of course, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, they all were cooperating in the 40s and the 50s, and were establishing the basics of so-called scientific technical intelligence. And also this construction, this phrase scientific technical intelligence is typical for that part of the world, because as I said, the CIA or the US intelligence community are using different phrases to describe what I mean now. And this it could be derived from the Russian Naučno-technickая разведка. And it was, actually implemented in the entire East Bloc countries. So, and as you see, and I could show you many more such diagrams, which will prove the necessity of like taking advantage of extraordinary means in order to catch up with the West, or to bridge the technological gap with the West. The communication, chemical industry, energy, many more. So Eastern Europe was less developed, and it was not the matter of communism, actually. It was already in the interwar time. In Poland, you can even take you can take a look on the statistics related to patents, because before the Second World War, and juxtaposing Germany and Poland, you will see that there were that this scientific power was in Germany perhaps even 100 times higher than it was in Poland. So this divergence between West and East was already the fact before the communism settled down in the Middle East area, and they then tried to catch up. And what is important, those are two observations made by American scholars. The one is by Christy McCrackis, who is an American scholar dealing with the GDR intelligence services in the area of science and technology. And she published an article already in the 90s in the National Security and Intelligence Journal, which is a pretty prestigious journal in the United States. And she claimed that having developed only an efficient intelligence service is not enough to successfully bridge the technological gap between East and West, because you need an environment. It is not enough to bring some solutions, know-how, or documents, to steal those documents or to buy those documents in the black market somewhere in Austria or in California or in Tokyo, because you need to have engineers and a domestic capacity to develop, to understand. They at least have to be updated with what is happening in the science or in the research and development, in order to copy those materials, to use them, and to build own solution basing on those stolen technologies. So the gap should not be too big. If the gap is getting bigger, it's getting harder to even to use stolen technology. So this was the first observation. The second comes from Alan Dobson, who is also a Western scholar, and he said that that this is not the matter of a certain technological solution, as an integrated cell suite, or I don't know, antibiotics, or another item or technology. It is the matter of time. It is the matter of place in the world. So it is not enough to to impose embargo on a certain technology or a resource, because you have to pay attention, taking the point of view of the Western powers. You have to pay attention whether this particular technology makes a difference for Eastern Bloc, and so that the U.S. government and Western societies, who established in the late 40s so-called so-called COCOM, which was Coordinating Committee for the Multilateral Export Controls, when they established, they introduced the concept of rolling embargo. So actually, after some time, the embargo was lifted, and new restrictions have been introduced. So it was moving. So let's say the 8-bit computers. The 8-bit computers were initially forbidden to sell to Eastern Bloc, but then in the 70s, after a discussion in the Senate or in the Western governments, they decided to allow them to be sold to the Eastern countries, whereas the 16-bit computers remained restricted. And of course, it extends on various kinds of technologies. I'm talking about computers, but we have to keep in mind that there is an entire technology here chemicals and energy equipment. So we have to take into consideration. I'm already talking, I guess, too long. I need to check my. Okay. Nobody is bored so far. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Anyway, so the first thing is to define the concept of economic espionage or industrial espionage. It's very difficult, and the Americans are using the term technical intelligence usually in order to describe a method of data acquisition. So scientific or technical intelligence is sometimes understood as a method of data acquisitions, let's say using computers or using drones or another equipment. But we are understanding the objects that are targeted by intelligence. So the science and the knowledge that the science produces, and the techniques that is produced by industry, by research and development. So this is my understanding, at least, and it reflects the Eastern approach. And what are the major problems here? I won't be going into the details, but I would like to give a framework for Poland. And now I'm getting back to the thing I mentioned at the beginning. Why Poland and why the Eastern European state? We have an exceptional access to the documents. Never and nowhere in the world such mass of documents have been released that are showing both the structure and the methods of scientific technical intelligence. Actually, CIA is publishing materials, but it is really very, they are declassifying them and releasing, but it's very, it's a choice, and all the personal data are removed, and all the details of individual operations are removed, while in Poland, as well as Hungary, or in Czech Republic and Slovak, to a lesser extent in Romania, I guess, those documents are now available and are in public domain. You can enter as historian and just learn how it was functioning. So it is really a worldwide exception. Whether it is good or bad, this is another question which is discussed in the public in Poland, because there are people who are saying that it was a mistake to release such amount of very sensitive data to the public domain, but foreign states could take advantage of those data. But this is another discussion. So what is important here? What was targeted by Polish intelligence? What kind of data was brought to Poland? There were, documents, but there were also items, so computers that has to be smuggled via various states, at the best via Austria or Switzerland. Those were or Sweden. Those states were regarded as a pretty safe transit areas. Of course, there are assets that could be discussed. The budget could be discussed also. How many? It's of course important question. How much money did the state invested into those structures which were bringing us technology, and what were the economic results of those operations? Which is, I can sum up very shortly that it paid off. It paid off basically, but it did not help to modernize entire economy. It was, if you take into consideration that there were in the highest point of scientific technical development in Poland in the 80s, there were approximately 150 operatives, plus some 400 sources, human intelligence sources worldwide, displaced worldwide. Then there's about 500,000 people could not replace the army of engineers. There were engineers as well, of course, a lot of engineers in Poland and institutes which were benefiting from those operations, but the manpower involved in pure operations was not that big. It was said about several hundred people worldwide. And very interesting problem in a context of the present situation in Ukraine. It was a permanent dilemma of Western governments. To what extent should they be opposing any trade contacts with those Eastern countries? At the latest, in the late 50s, Poland gained a lot of, after the so-called political thaw in Poland. Poland started to open, started to to stress its differences and a little bit independent towards Soviet Union, and then United States government decided to allow much more so-called exemptions. Exemptions, it means technologies that were permitted to be sold in lower quantities, for example, to Poland, because in order to encourage Poles to go against Russians. And Poland, we see it in statistics. Those are, it's very easy to even to document based on the documents produced by US State Department and US Treasury, that until mid-60s, when Romania joined to this club of privileged countries, Poland was the only one country that enjoyed this like privilege of being able to buy technologies that were normally restricted to share with communist bloc. So it is interesting, and then also this frictions between United States and Germany when it comes to the pipeline and the selling of technology that would allow Soviet Union to build this Druzhba pipeline. This discussion is repeating, and the United States are always like a hardliner, while the Europe is more flexible, and you see it every time actually, and now you see it again. But yeah, this is only the another question is, of course, to what extent Poland could be regarded in the 60s or 70s as a country that is distanced to the Soviet Union or to Moscow, while I found evidences in the documents produced by the Russian ministries for medical equipment, for electronics, telecommunication, that the Russians were coming in the 60s and 70s, as the Poles were coming to Russia, to Soviet Union, visiting the institutes and so on, so on. So there was this permanent flow of technology between two countries, and if the US government decided to sell Poland, let's say, gravimeter or oscilloscopes in the 60s that had this dual use, meaning that could be both used by civil and military facilities. So when they decided to sell them to Poland, they had to know, and they knew it because we see it in the briefings, in the reports, that they were aware that Poles can share it with Soviet Union internal, although Poland was obliged to state that this technology will not be proliferated further. Okay, I try to go to another, it's not so easy for me. The transfer areas, I mentioned it already. It's a very interesting topic where actually you have to imagine how this transfer took place. Actually, the most documents were simply packed to the luggage by the employees of Western companies. You can call many companies here in California, or in Germany, or in Osaka, and they were simply packed those documents and went to, for holidays to Spain or Yugoslavia, where they met Polish officers. Usually the third country territory was used for such operative meetings. Sometimes a further consulting was required, so that those people were coming to Poland and help to even for several weeks or months, and spent as experts consulting Polish engineers how to use those documents. And there were really stories like Poland, late 60s, Poland approached Thomson Company in France to buy an integrated cell suite, and the French were negative. Initially they wanted to sell those large-scale integrated cell suite for Poland, and then they resigned under the pressure of United States government. But Thomson sold Poland another technologies, less important and less restricted, with the permission of COCOM community and United States. And then can you imagine that Poles approached the Japan companies, and the Japan companies agree to sell Poland those restricted elements of manufacturing line. And in one place in Poland, in a certain factory, at the same time, there were French engineers and managers coming completely legally in framework of license agreement, helping Polish engineers by installing equipment. And in the same factory, in another room, there were Japan engineers being there completely illicitly, completely illegally, and helping Poles to install an equipment that has been purchased by the intelligence service in Japan, BRAV, completely under a false invoices and as another items, so completely hidden in a clandestine operation. And the management of the factory was very, cautious about to organize those visits in the way that both delegations won't meet in the place. And it is a authentic story. I'm heading toward the end, and one thing I would like to stress on the end is that intelligence service in Poland, and same was the case in other countries. We know it because there was an intelligence share within the Comecon countries. So Poland passed on documents to Hungary, Hungary passed on documents to Poland. There was a reimbursement involved, so it was not for free. It was not only a brotherhood or friendship. It was just a trade, just business as usual. But we can distinguish between two major purposes for intelligence service. The one was to circumvent embargo restrictions. So there were the dual-use components were involved that could be used by military. But it was like in Poland, it was perhaps 20%, 30%, while the majority of goods or know-how that has been transferred to Poland was non-dual-use nature. It was just bypassing the license agreements. So that's something you can do because every time actually it was not because of a restriction, but because to avoid the payments. And then mostly the pharmacy industry has been targeted, like the Ciba-Geigy in Switzerland, Sandoz, Bayer, Merck, Eli Lilly, and everything. Pfizer, of course. You can imagine those companies. Their products were not on embargo lists. They were just very, very expensive. And Poland took advantage of intelligence asset in order to approach some employees that had access to documents, and actually many times very successfully brought those technologies and all the documents that were needed in order to launch the production without paying those huge payments to the license giver. And this is also my last observation. My last observation is that this is all about the state that was controlling. It was planet economy. This is a thing we have to keep in mind. Planet economy, state, the government controls everything, the enterprises in every possible area. So they are benefiting from intelligence operation. And I know that there is an ongoing discussion nowadays in the United States to which extent, to what extent should, for example, the CIA or another on National Security Agency, should they share their knowledge with the private entities in the United States concerning, China and the matter of global markets? Can state endorse private entities, and then which one actually? It was the dilemma that the Polish or Soviet or Czech government did not have at that time. I prepared some example which shows you only the sophistication. This is a real PLA 501 Canon, which was could be buy on eBay. It was valued about I don't know, several $100, I guess, two years ago. Polish intelligence paid for it, I guess, $1 million or something. I don't remember a precise price. It was successfully brought to Polish factory. It is this photolithography technology. In order, it's useful. The equipment is useful in the very, very high very high scale of integration circuits. Anyway, and this is only the example. I came to the end just, and it shows you the complex of entire various various bodies involved in Poland. This is example how they smuggled equipment from Japan via China and China intermediators, using this opportunity of China differential in U.S. policy, because as you probably know, in the late 70s, U.S. started to sell a lot to China. Those exemptions approved by COCOM states amounted about 5,000. 5,000 technologies were sold annually to China in the early 80s, while to Soviet Union, for example, 30 or 50 to Poland. So China became a window for in this last period of communism. It became a window to US advanced technology. And then I this is the last slide. I try to describe this this cycle, how the Polish society should actually profit, should be profitable from this intelligence activity, although there were many disadvantages, like failed operation that lead to a decrease of authority of the Polish state in the international area. But most of all, it was a useful way to support national economy. However, it could not impact the technological change in the way that the Polish government or the government in Moscow wished it, because you cannot just replace entire environment by using those illegal methods. This is not enough. Thank you for your attention.
I want to thank Miroslaw Sikora for his support of the people of Ukraine in this difficult period, that he take his time and delivered this interesting lecture about industrial espionage. I want to mention that you can write to our YouTube channel or Patreon, and I want to end the recording.